15 years, and imagine that it's 1994. 1994. 1994 was a long time ago. It's a long time ago. In 1994, Barack Obama was a skinny law professor still paying back his student loans. In 1994, BlackBerry addiction was an ailment that only affected squirrels. In 1994, people Twittered only when they couldn't think of something intelligent to say. Which I guess is still sort of true. So we're in 1994. We find an economist, say a business school professor with a PhD, and we say to her, I've got a crystal ball here that can peer perfectly, infallibly into the future. And I want to test your forecasting powers. So I'm going to describe to you two different encyclopedias. One just out, another to be launched in a few years. And you have to predict, oh, Ms. Economist, which one is going to be more successful 15 years hence in 2009. Okay, so here's what we say to her. We say, the first encyclopedia comes from Microsoft. As you know, Microsoft is a large and profitable company. And next year, with the introduction of Windows 95, it's about to become even bigger. Microsoft will fund this encyclopedia. It will pay professional writers and editors to craft articles on thousands of topics. Well-compensated managers will oversee the project to make sure it comes in on budget and on time. Then Microsoft will put it all on CD-ROMs and online and sell it. Okay? That's the first model. Then we say to our PhD economist, the second encyclopedia won't come from a company. It will be created by thousands of people who write and edit articles for fun. They won't need any special qualifications at all to participate. And here's the best part. This is awesome. No one will be paid a cent to write or edit the articles. Participants will have to volunteer their time, sometimes 20 and 30 hours a week for free. And the encyclopedia is going to be free too. No charge for anybody who wants to use it. So you say to this economist in 1994, think forward 15 years. According to my crystal ball, in 2009, one of these encyclopedias will be the largest and most popular in the world, and the other will be defunct. Which is which? In 1994, I don't think you could have found a single sober economist anywhere on planet Earth who would not have picked that first model as the success. Any other conclusion would have been laughable. Contrary to everything we know about business, everything we know about economics, everything we know about what motivates people. That second model might produce something. That ragtag band of volunteers might produce something, but not much. The incentives were all off. There were no monetary rewards for success, no penalties for failure. The first model, that Microsoft model, had the incentives and the motivation right. But you know how things turned out. On October 31st of this year, Microsoft will pull the plug on Encarta. Put it out of business. The online and disk encyclopedia it's been producing for 16 years. Meanwhile, Wikipedia, that second model, has become the largest and most popular encyclopedia in the world. Again, let's ask the Ohio question. What the sandhill is going on here? Here's what I think is going on. I think that there is a mismatch today between what science knows and what business does. Science has always known that human beings have an array of actually a small collection of motivations. Human beings have a biological drive, obviously. We eat to sate our hunger. We drink to quench our thirst. We do a variety of things to satisfy our sexual urges. And that's part of what it is to be human. We're biological creatures. Well, in the course of science, we discover that human beings also have a second drive. The drive will respond to extrinsic forces, extrinsic motivators, outside forces that either deliver a punishment or deliver a reward. Okay? But here's the problem. Beginning in the late 1940s, with a set of experiments at the University of Wisconsin, scientists began discovering that we human beings also have a third drive. A drive that's often called intrinsic motivation. And this is part of what it means to be human too. And here's what one of the leading scholars of it says. Intrinsic motivation, or this intrinsic sensibility, is the inherent desire to seek out novelty and challenges, to extend and exercise our capacities, to explore and to learn. This is what science has uncovered in the last 60 years, and yet, in our businesses, we haven't caught up to this new reality. And what these researchers who have studied the real science of human motivation are telling us is actually pretty surprising. I mean, it in some ways rocks our world. Here's what they tell us. Rewards and punishments, okay? That's sort of the whole thing that our free market economies are based upon. Rewards and punishments work, but only in a very narrow band of circumstances, a surprisingly narrow band of circumstances. What else have they told us? That rewards and punishments very often achieve the exact opposite of what they're trying to accomplish. What else do they tell us? They tell us that high performance in any field, sports, music, design, art, teaching, public service, anything, high performance really depends, and we see this over and over again, high performance depends on, not on these extrinsic forces, but on these intrinsic forces, on intrinsic motivation, the third drive. And this is not a philosophy, this is not a feeling, this is a fact. This is the cold, hard scientific truth. And it's a fact we better start reckoning with before it's too late. So let me explain this in a slightly different way, a slightly wonkier way. Let's use computers as an analogy here. Let's use computers as an analogy here. Any computer, whether it's a MacBook on your lap, or a Dell desktop back in your office, or the phone in your pocket, any computer has an operating system, right? Beneath the surface of the hardware you touch and the programs that you manipulate is a complex layer of software, right? That contains the instructions and the protocols and the suppositions that enable everything else to function smoothly. Okay, so we don't ever think about operating systems, right? We notice them only when they break down. When the programs are running grow too large and complicated for the current operating system to handle, so smart programmers then refashion the operating system, produce a far better, more robust version, and upgrade. Now, societies also have operating systems. The companies that we run, the offices where we work, the economic arrangements we encounter every day sit atop a layer of mostly unspoken instructions, protocols, suppositions about how the world works. And most of our societal operating system consists of a set of assumptions about human behavior. Okay, so let's go back 50,000 years to our very early days. The underlying assumption about human behavior was simple and true. We were trying to survive, right? We were just trying to survive. From roaming the savannah to gather food, to scrambling for the bushes when a saber-toothed tiger approached, that drive guided most of our behavior. Okay, so let's call this operating system Motivation 1.0. It wasn't elegant, but it served us nicely. It worked well, until it didn't. Right? So eventually societies grew more complex. We bumped up against strangers. We needed to cooperate with people outside our clan to get stuff done. And so an operating system based entirely on biological drives wasn't enough. We needed an upgrade. So we got an upgrade. Let's call this Motivation 2.0. This was basically built around the assumption that humans are more than the sum of our biological urges. We have that second drive, to seek reward and avoid punishment. And this became the heart of this operating system. And here's the thing. It was a rousing, amazing, friggin' success. It was huge. There's no way economies would have grown without it. If you think about life before the Industrial Revolution, there wasn't any concept of management. But once we took this new approach, a rational, scientific approach to managing scads of people through incentives and disincentives, rewards and punishments, the sky was the limit. Now, this operating system was really like a carrot and stick operating system. Okay, so it wasn't that ennobling. But what it lacked in enlightenment, it made up for in effectiveness. It worked well, extremely well, until it didn't. And over the last